Welcome back everybody to another episode of Direct Comparison. In today's episode, we're taking a look at the PC version of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 Remastered, and seeing how it compares visually to Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare Remastered that released alongside Infinite Warfare back in 2016. For this comparison, both games are being played on the PC with their graphics settings pushed to the highest settings at a 1440p resolution. However, the motion blur options will be disabled to provide cleaner still images. That being said, there does appear to be a major flaw with this most recent remaster on PC, in that the anti-aliasing method used causes a really bad blurring effect when moving slowly or standing still in some situations. Disabling the AA entirely seems to fix this, at the cost of some obvious bad edge shimmer. So if you're looking to improve the visual presentation and have the hardware to back it up, I suggest dropping the AA entirely and just increasing the super sampling to a manageable level. Raven Software's Modern Warfare Remastered from 2016 had a similar issue, though it only seemed to present itself in the included multiplayer mode. Now, for the sake of consistency, the AA will be maxed out for this video, but keep that in mind if any textures appear blurry throughout. Alright, so to kick this comparison off, let's take a look at some of the character models, starting with Captain Price. Now, back in 2016, we were given an incredible overhaul to Price's character model, with more wrinkles along his face, better shaders, and more distinct hairs that helped to form his iconic mutton chop mustache combo. In Modern Warfare 2, the character himself has aged a bit more, and this is properly reflected with additional wrinkles and a fully grown beard, along with a few more cuts and bruises. The model is just about on par with the Raven Software version of the character, though interestingly, it does appear that his eyes are now a different color, as they appeared more blue previously, whereas now they almost look brown. It could just be the lighting, but it seems to be clearly different when viewing the models in-game. As far as quality goes, it's very difficult to say one is better than the other. Modern Warfare 2 technically has a lot more detail, but those extra details were added in primarily to age the character and give him a more beat-up appearance consistent with the story. When viewing various other character models throughout both games, the improvements become a bit more apparent. It appears Beanox reused the models created previously and reskinned them, with some identical seams and folds still being identifiable when viewed up close. But on top of this reskin are some higher res textures for things like belts and straps, along with several more 3D details like pouches and pockets to help give the character more depth. The end result, while still not nearly as good as soldier models in games like 2019's Modern Warfare, is still significantly improved over the 2016 remaster, and remains consistent with the artistic style used by Infinity Ward back in 2009. Next up, let's take a look at some weapon models. Modern Warfare 2 Remastered, just like its predecessor, features all the same weapons used in its original counterpart. Every gun you remember, like the Vector, Intervention, and Thermal Scoped Scar, are brought back with new high-quality models and flashy inspect animations to help show them off. And to save on time and resources, it does appear that many of the same models used in the COD 4 remaster have been recycled directly into Modern Warfare 2 Remastered. Weapons like the M9, for example, appear virtually identical, with the only noticeable differences being attributed to the environmental lighting. The same is true with the P90, with all the same distinct details like the small coiled cable along the side being in the exact same place. However, upon closer inspection, there are a few new details added in, like scratches along the front of this grip, and some dirt accumulating near the top rail. It's a very minor change, but the original models already look great, so I can understand why they decided to reuse them and only make small tweaks. A few weapons, though, have seen total reworks. Just like with the original Modern Warfare 2, some weapons that share the same name in-game look and feel completely different. The Desert Eagle, for example, now has a more custom look to it, with an integrated rail on the top and new laser sight attachment. The AK-47 has seen an even more drastic change, with new polymer pieces like the collapsible stock grip and magazine, along with an additional handguard. These changes are all consistent with how the original Modern Warfare 2 differed from Call of Duty 4. And so, despite a few weapon designs being recycled back into the mix, there's still several brand new designs thrown in, alongside a large selection of brand new weapons to use like the F2000 and the AUG. Now, let's take a look at how the environments have changed. For those unfamiliar with the classic Modern Warfare trilogy, Modern Warfare 1 takes place primarily on two fronts: an unspecified Middle Eastern city, and some rural areas in and around Russia. Modern Warfare 2, on the other hand, offers a lot more variety, with missions that take players through the favelas in Rio de Janeiro, the mountains in Kazakhstan, and even a war-torn United States. MW2 isn't entirely different though. In fact, a few missions do feel oddly familiar. The second mission, Team Player for example, sees players take part in an American invasion of an Afghan city with overwhelming force, a theme explored previously in Call of Duty 4's Charlie Don't Surf. The level Contingency shares a lot in common with the fan favorite All Gillied Up, at least for the first half. And Loose Ends looks eerily similar to the mission Heat, with a lot of the same terrain decoration and general ideas, only flipped around, with enemies ambushing the player rather than the player ambushing the enemies. As far as the actual quality goes, Modern Warfare 2 Remastered again doesn't offer that much of an improvement. Sure, there's a lot of new high-quality textures thrown in to go along with the new locations, but there's also quite a few reused textures and assets throughout that have barely changed at all. In fact, the only real standout change in this latest remaster is the rework to the grass effects. Grass appears to be more dense in certain environments, especially in the Brazil missions. The draw distance also appears to be improved, making object pop-in less noticeable, though it's still very much present if you look for it. The only real downside to Modern Warfare 2 Remastered is that the grass no longer bends out of the way of the player, a feature that was likely implemented in the original Modern Warfare Remaster due to the sequence where players are forced to crawl through the field of grass in All Gillied Up. Since you'll rarely find yourself crawling through grass in Modern Warfare 2, this is an excusable downgrade, especially considering the increased density of vegetation in general. The lighting is probably one of the biggest standout improvements with these remastered titles, as the original games featured a lot of pre-baked lighting effects that have not aged very well. With the Call of Duty 4 remaster, the lighting was tweaked for every mission to provide a more colorful, cinematic presentation. The lighting has far more volumetric properties to it, and there's even a noticeable amount of bloom and simulated HDR implemented to help make the image pop more. Missions that take place in pure daylight have a stronger contrast between shadowed areas, and nighttime missions are now much darker, making tools like night vision more practical. Modern Warfare 2 Remastered makes similar improvements, with a much more rich color palette and significantly improved lighting effects overall. Volumetric light rays pour through ruined structures now, and missions with uniquely colorful skyboxes like Of Their Own Accord are accentuated further, making each mission feel distinct and interesting. The only real noticeable difference is that some of the bloom effects have been toned down a bit, which is most noticeable when looking at various effects like fire and explosions. Next, we have shadows. Shadows sadly have not been improved at all here. Players still don't cast any shadows of their own, and both environmental and character projected shadows suffer from some obvious dithering when viewed up close. Still, shadows in both games have a nice soft projection to them that makes them appear more naturally in the environment, and the added contrast from the improved lighting helps them to stand out more. And then we have effects, that, just like everything else, appears to be recycled directly from the previous remaster. Grenade explosions, for example, are virtually identical, with the only noticeable difference being that the fireball appears brighter in the original due to that excessive amount of bloom being implemented. Fire effects are treated the same way, with bloom being used to help the fire glow more. But Modern Warfare 2 Remastered uses this bloom effect more subtly, with little to no glow at all. And while some of the smaller flames look a little bit off, bigger fires like the burning house towards the end of the mission Exodus look great. Water has also seen a few improvements, with a more detailed water surface in some levels, but because of how little role it plays in the gameplay, it's not that great of an upgrade, and still appears fairly static and flat in comparison to other modern games. Outside of that, Modern Warfare 2 Remastered features all of the same improvements that the original Modern Warfare 2 had, including better glass breaking effects and new ember particles emitting from scripted burning trees in some levels. Finally, let's wrap up with a quick sound comparison. Which game do you think has the superior audio design? And that wraps up this episode of Direct Comparison. Overall, the Modern Warfare 2 Remaster offers negligible improvements over the previous Modern Warfare Remaster. Sure, all the same improvements offered in the original Modern Warfare 2 are still present here, like more interesting environments, more colorful lighting, and slightly more destructibility. But outside of that, most assets feel recycled from Raven Software's 2016 remaster. The lighting has been tweaked a little bit to remove some of that excessive bloom from before, and all the new assets created for the new locations look much better. But it's still not quite as big a jump in visual quality as the original Modern Warfare 2 was to Call of Duty 4. Additionally, unlike the 2016 remaster, this new remaster does not come with any form of competitive multiplayer or co-op Spec Ops mode. A huge disappointment for any fans looking to relive one of Call of Duty's most defining online experiences. According to Infinity Ward, this was done to help preserve the strong community in the most recent Modern Warfare title, though it would have been nice to at least have some kind of option to play this more traditional multiplayer offline with bots or something. Still, despite the lack of multiplayer and the annoying blurring issue when enabling the anti-aliasing method, Modern Warfare 2 Remastered is a fine upgrade on par with the previous remaster, and hopefully we'll see a Modern Warfare 3 Remaster sooner rather than later to help round out the trilogy. But what do you guys think? Are you impressed with the Modern Warfare 2 Remaster, or were you expecting more? Let me know in the comment section. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos posted every week.